This podcast is owned and operated by the RCR Association, a private third party to the Department of National Defense. The content of this podcast is the responsibility of the RCR Association and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the Government of Canada. The official emblems of the regiment are used with the permission of Regimental Headquarters, the RCR.
I hope everybody is excited because I am. Our guest today is Chief Warrant Officer Retired Kevin Donovan. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
This is a very casual experience, so the way you're talking is perfectly fine for the microphone. Sir, I always like to ask guests and stuff because everybody I've been speaking to is coming from slightly different timelines of service. What year was it when you joined the military?
I joined the military back in early February 1980.
Wow.
And I retired on my birthday in 2016.
Wow.
Yeah.
Retired on your birthday in 2016. So you joined the military in 1980, retired in 2016.
Yeah.
That's incredible. If my math is correct, that's 36 years of service.
That's right. I had also a year in the reserves. They did
before, sir?
Yeah.
So that was your first year of service?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was in the reserves, 8th Squadron, 8th Canadian Reserves in Moncton, New Brunswick.
Wow.
Yeah.
East Coaster?
Yeah.
Born and raised?
Born and raised.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what was it that made you want to join the military?
I grew up in the area I lived in was all working class. It was all poor families, and there was interspersed. We were all in wartime housing.
Interesting.
Those small little houses.
What does that mean, wartime housing?
At the end of the Second World War, they had built very small, modest homes. And that was for the servicemen returning back from the war, from Europe.
The Second World War, sir?
Yeah, Second World War. And my hometown, Moncton, New Brunswick, was involved in Commonwealth Air Training Plan, where they trained air crews from the Commonwealth. And there was a lot of RAF personnel that went through. They were training. They trained a lot of their navigators following the coastline. So they'd go down the Petitcodiac River, Bay of Fundy, all that, because most of the bombing raids, that's what they do. They'd follow the coast, the coastline of northern Germany into their targets, following the rivers down. And in fact, a well-known actor, Richard Burton, one of his fondest memories was spending Christmas in Moncton, New Brunswick as a member of the RAF during World War II.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a little plug for Moncton on the podcast. But I joined the reserves. I was in the Army Cadets as well before that. And the cadets, we were pretty well in old 50s and 60s pattern uniforms. So we wore woolen battle dress with ankle boots and puttees. And we'd go away to summer camp, usually in Gagetown, Camp Argonaut, and be trained by, these guys were all veterans. A lot of them were RCR, and they would take commission as a cadet officer, but you could tell within 2 seconds, these guys had a bit of field experience.
What was that like for you? You were
very,
you were a kid.
They were very strict, but we did have fun. I remember canoeing down the St. John River, and we would live in the bush. So all that life of living in the field was nothing new to me when I came to join the Army. I even got to learn how to climb mountains in the cadets.
That's interesting.
We did a camp in Banff, and we climbed. I remember my guide was from New Zealand, and I was pretty intense for a kid in junior high.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Did ice fields and all that, glacier walks, the whole 9 yards. So that was pretty good. One thing I didn't get out of cadets or the reserves was a jump course, and that's one thing I really wanted. And
So it's something that's always been highly
Oh yeah, that these guys were the superstars. The airborne, the paratroopers.
So you knew about the Airborne Corps
Oh yeah,
being a cadet.
oh yeah, yeah, and very very enthused. I always wanted to get into. I remember trying to get that course as a cadet, and same thing in the reserves. And it's like take a number. Joined the right force, went to the battalion, and the way they did things back in those days, and I'm talking early 80s, was they asked for volunteers. And you had to sign a document stating you would serve X number of years in the Airborne Regiment. And then you did your pre-para course. If you passed it, you went to jump school. You passed that, you pretty well knew you were coming to the Airborne Regiment. So I did a few years in the Airborne Regiment. Loved it.
Was that your first regular force regiment?
I was with the 1st Battalion. I went from the 1st Battalion to the Airborne Regiment.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was in
Where are you guys
RCR.
located, sir? With 1st Battalion.
They were in London, but I didn't spend too much time there. Didn't really know too much. Never get to see it. Actually, I was underage. I couldn't go drinking downtown, so that might have had a fair amount to do with it. Junior ranks were pretty strict too. You had to have dress slacks, which none of us owned, to go in on the other side. So I spent my time drinking out of the beer machine on the snake pit side and never went into the other side for any entertainment. They were strict on the dress codes, which I thought was a little bit too much because none of us owned anything other than a pair of sneakers and blue jeans and company t-shirts. That was it. The pay wasn't great.
Tell us about it. Like,
Yeah, we made peanuts. I honestly don't know how some of the married soldiers would have survived back in those days with kids. But no, a big thing I remember was a few extra dollars in your pocket going to the Airborne Regiment. So there was a real enticement for me. Like I said,
do you remember how much?
no, it was minuscule. Guys today wouldn't even get out of bed for it. But the idea was it was something different. It was a challenge, right? I did enjoy my time here in the Airborne Regiment. Fantastic NCOs.
Sir, if you don't mind me asking, because I'm very curious about the Airborne Regiment, this is an entity of an organization that existed before my time.
Right.
And in fact, its existence was coming to an end probably when I was born in 92.
Yeah, it wasn't too long after that. It was disbanded, but the whole thing about the Airborne Regiment, when it was founded in 68, was how do you get soldiers into the Arctic? There's only one way I know of, and if you need them there in a hurry, and that's by parachute. To this day, I still think it is. Otherwise, why do the Russians and the Americans seem to point in that direction? So it had to do with the defense of the North. The fact they were located in Edmonton, Alberta, that was before my time, made a lot of sense. And it was basically 2 companies is what they had. They were extra large rifle companies, and they had a batteries, usual support you'd have for, a light battalion. But that seemed to be the way. A lot of people told me that when they came to Petawawa was kind of like the beginning of the end. Maybe it was, who knows? But it was, for myself, it was a great experience. Great NCOs. They were strict, but they were fair. You had, as long as you showed them that you belonged, and you had to be fit. That was one thing. The pace of physical training I thought was good. And in the field, you live pretty hard. Living out of a rucksack, it's an art in itself. But yeah, I learned a lot from that. I found that Petawawa in those days, there wasn't too much here. Very small. It was like a village. And
What units were lodged here during?
well, there was a brigade. They called it the Special Service Force. Had a big sexy badge, but it was just a normal brigade based on the Airborne Regiment and the 1st Battalion RCR. You also had, the normal brigade units that are still here, 2 horse.
battalions.
Yeah, you got it. And, the idea was it was supposed to be a little bit more rapid deployment kind of
Quick
thing.
reaction.
Yeah,
Or for the government.
sort of, I guess, to put it mildly. It made more sense when the Airborne was its own entity in Edmonton. I got that part. Uh, Later on, of course, I went, 2 things I wanted to do as a soldier. Number 1, do the Airborne Regiment. Number 2, serve in Europe. So,
Why in Europe?
why not?
Mm.
You know what I mean? So, that was our big focus back in the Cold War, was that brigade we had in Europe. We had a brigade,
Mm-hmm.
4 CMBG. I joined 3 RCR in Winnipeg. I love my days out.
Was that after your time with the Airborne Regiment?
Yes. So from the Airborne, I went to Winnipeg. Loved my time out there. And I can say this about Winnipeg. Of all the NCOs that we went out there, we went there as single men. We came there as single men, and we left as married men.
All the NCS.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of us met our wives there. Yeah, we liked the city. It was great. The battalion was, some demanding training, but the battalion grew. We were up to full strength, and then we deployed to Europe in '88. I was with the battalion from '88 to '93 when the Cold War ended and the brigade was disbanded. And when the brigade disbanded, they had all these surplus NCOs and what to do with them. So they came up with a concept called 1090. And the units would of course have a say whether they wanted to be involved in this experiment or not, but it would have a 10% Reg Force cadre with the units. So we were in rifle platoons and rifle companies with the reservists, and we would do the training, which was great for a lot of the Class A guys. You know what I mean? So we would do the training, set up small exercises. I thought it was a very good idea. The reservists that I worked with really enjoyed having us there.
Where were you posted?
I went to St. Catharines, so I went right from Germany to St. Catharines. But the kicker was that I spent most of my time there on task. So I was eaten by the CFTPO machine and did a lot of serials putting through TQ3 infantry candidates. I didn't mind that, but my time in St. Catharines was a blur. I didn't spend too much time there. Between the taskings and going out in the field with the reserve units, that was pretty well it. That was my time. Was nice. Came back here to Petawawa in '96 where we reconstituted 3 RCR. We basically took over the old airborne lines. And it was quite an experiment because we had the NCOs from Germany and we had the NCOs that were there from the Airborne Regiment after disbandment, threw them all together and made a new battalion.
What was that like? Clash of cultures?
Definitely. A lot of animosity, a lot of hatred.
And how did it feel for you? Because you're a person who identified with both groups.
That's right. So yeah, I found myself in the middle, but because I wasn't there at the Airborne during disbandment, it's like I was never there.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I thought, really, especially going back to a room right position. Yeah, I remember going to the career manager and talking about my next step, and I don't know where he had me slated, but I just remember he took most of the paperwork and threw it in the waste paper basket because he was informed at that time the Airborne Regiment was disbanded.
Wow.
So all their plans, garbage. Yeah, so it ended up working out after a while. It takes time. People get to know each other, and the Army's a pretty macho atmosphere, especially NCO Corps. You know what I mean? They look for weakness, and when they see it, they attack, right? So yeah, it worked out all right. A lot of growing pains, but things started to take shape once we took over this building, S113. Things started to come into place, and I thought, I think they knew as well. They needed another battalion for their managed readiness cycle for Bosnia, because that was the next thing. I did the first UN tour when I was in Germany. And during the brigade disbandment, we sent a battle group of Vandus and RCRs into, at the time, Croatia for a UN peacekeeping mission.
What year would have this been?
That was in 92.
Wow.
And yeah, so as we're disbanding, we threw a tour together, and we deployed to the theater by train. So
From Germany.
yeah, from Germany. Loaded everything on a flatbed, and basically where we got off was basically the FIBA, forward edge of the battle area. So that was unique. But yeah, there was a lot of unique things about it.
That experience of
That whole experience of UN peacekeeping, there was no peace to keep. We were just target. It was target practice.
Was this deployment the same one that Sergeant Greg Tate was on as well?
No, Greg went to a tour. I believe he was there under the 2nd Battalion, and they sent guys right to Srebrenica. So I was like 3 RCR recce platoon. We sent a recce platoon and November Commie to be part of the Vandu battle group, and we were under. The whole thing happened. Our R&R center was Sarajevo. That's where we were supposed to take our leave, and we're watching.
What's going on in Sarajevo?
And we're watching on TV, and it's like, oh, all hell's breaking loose
in Sarajevo.
Yeah, and what we ended, the UN needed somebody, a mechanized unit that could get there as quick as possible, take control of the airport to bring in, supplies and aid, right, to the population, which was surrounded by the Serbs. So the Serbs had all the heavy artillery up in the mountains, and they could pound at will pretty well everything they wanted. And that's why they wanted us there to take over the airport so that relief supplies could come in. Later on, the relief convoys, UN workers driving the trucks, basically said, we're not driving through this stuff. And you'll never guess who ended up driving those trucks. Soldiers from the RCR. And I was talking to one of my buddies. We went to a Vandu get-together. Was at the War Museum in December. And he reminded me of the fact of the guys driving those trucks. And he was driving a truck of compressed oxygen, compressed gas. And these were areas that were shelling. So you can imagine the pucker factor was pretty good. I had my own experiences with recce platoon. Just amazed at the amount of firepower they had. They could have destroyed us at any time they wanted to. I mean, there's nothing we could have
Did you feel vulnerable when you were there?
We were shot at all the time. It's the matter of, you never knew if it was aimed at you or is that a straight round. And a lot of times it was both.
Before you deploy, I would argue in my experiences, I've gotten some sort of briefing to get me to some degree prepared for this theater.
Too quick. It was too quick.
What's it like?
It was too quick. You got to remember, we were in the middle of disbanding. the brigade is disbanding. They're sending stuff on. So you could be shipped by boat back to Canada or to the scrap heap. So it's during all this that, of course, all the soldiers are hoping for a tour. My battalion's going, I want to be there kind of thing. And so we're throwing together a plan as quick as possible. I remember it was questions about whether or not we were going, and our battalion leadership didn't even know. But once we were activated, things fell in pretty quickly.
What was your rank? What was your position?
I was a sergeant at the time.
I'm talking about 92 here.
Yeah, I was a sergeant at the time, and I went to Recce Platoon as a Recce Det commander. The Van Du Recce Platoon took the 6th call sign. So here I was 3 RCR Recce with a call sign 7-3. So that's pretty confusing as it is. But yeah, it was, I've always hated that term peacekeeper because it's not what we're in business for. Peacekeeper was a political expedient that we could be lightly armed and, not have the stuff we needed if push came to shove. When the bullets start flying, you want to have the firepower to shoot back. And I thought that tour we didn't. We had ended up with bringing a few tow under armor and a mortar platoon. But honestly, in that setting, they would have been swallowed up so quick. You know what I mean? It was good for a statement, but no, it just...
Were you guys upset? Were you guys like, what?
Well, I mean,
why are we equipped this way?
that's the mission.
Yeah.
You don't... I don't think there was ever a general in history went into battle with the forces he thought he should have. I mean, it's just like, well, that's all we got. That's all there is. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that was the end of that. Check my notes here. Yeah, so after I did that, I spent my time here, finished my career as RSM 1st Battalion. After that, I went to Kingston, Canadian Army Training Doctrine as the
Chief Warrant Officer.
Yeah, as a chief. And my post was Army NCM Professional Development. So
before we get into Army NCM Professional Development, I just want everybody who doesn't know Chief Warrant Officer Donovan, he just skipped past through a lot of great highlights of his career that I know any person who is humble like yourself doesn't like to speak of themselves in such a way to gloat about your accomplishments and highlights of your career. I do want to say though, sir, as somebody who serves as a sergeant in para company right now, to have you as a guest, as somebody who was the company sergeant major of para company at the time where this para company deployed to war to Afghanistan, you were the company sergeant major. And the reason why I want to say this is because I had an amazing moment a few months ago when General or Brigadier General Oberworth came to visit para company and all the troops in Garrison Petawawa.
Good man.
Incredible. And gentlemen like him and yourself, I grew up watching you guys on TV when I was a kid.
Oh, God.
Before I joined the military. So for me, as the host of the podcast, as an NCO in para company, it's awesome to have you guys here to tell your story. And I know you guys don't like to gloat about your accomplishments, but I want everybody listening.
I'll say one thing about that period. I thought that, and this is nothing about me, but the soldiers themselves, we went from being airborne infantry, light infantry, to mechanized in no time at all. Not only did we become proficient with LAV, drivers, gunners, crew commanders, that was very, very compressed period. We had to get on with it to be that mech company on the ground. I still marvel at the fact that the guys were able to embrace the training, get into it, put everything they had into it, to be there, to get qualified. We had our growing pains. I remember the first time I got the chalkboard out and talking to the platoon warrant about leaguers and, rolling replan and all that comes with being mech. And a lot of them said, "Oh God, I spent my career trying to avoid this crap." And, no, they got on with business, true professionals, all of them. Uh, you know, uh, some we did have a few soldiers that had a background with the lab, but for the majority, no. Not the guys that I had soldiered with for, those few years. But it just showed that, they were good professionals. They got on with it. I thought it's one of the things people overlook about the 3rd Battalion.
Yeah.
Hey, we became back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not only can we live out of a rucksack and live hard, but sure, yeah, we can do mech. Yeah. So at the end of the day, that worked out really well. Great leadership. We had all the time in the world for, then Major will work, but, he's going up in the world now, and that's great. But no, it was a good, solid bunch. I look back on that, and great team we had. Tunes where I thought got on with business. They're I never had any real concerns of any kind, and that's pretty good to say.
How far, like, at what point were you in your career when you went to Afghanistan?
So that was my time as a rifle company sergeant major. So I had a bit of time to do the para thing, to do a lot of things like jumping in the company, conducting an airborne operation, para op orders, those kind of things, airborne battle procedure. And then, before it was, as we just knew what we were doing and had it down to a science, now it's like, you got to be mech now. So let's get on with it. But no, we had a good bunch. It was, even then, you were basically stealing NCOs. So I pretty well knew, and this is where networking comes in handy, because at this time, solid NCOs were a commodity hard to get. And you basically went around and grabbed these guys. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, you scooped up yet for tour? Seriously, that's what it was. And you ended up doing this. And I remember guys that I had served with getting a hold of me via the internet or phone. Hey, is it true that you guys are going on tour? Yeah, it is. Well, save me a spot. And some of these guys were in other trades. So, you know what I mean? Like I said, good bunch. But what I found was later on and working with other trades, I thought that maybe we could have done better for our people, the NCMs. I just thought that the armed forces pretty well took it for granted. And I thought during those years of Afghanistan, where they all walked around with their chest out and heaped the allocates of what the Army was doing, constantly being on operations. And I thought that the system and the whole corporation, they had everything stacked in their favor when we should have been the center of gravity. And that's something that's always stuck with me. It's too bad a place like Petawawa, where you're kind of isolated, the soldiers don't get to interact with the population. And this is what happens when you've got the only real Army base with Reg Force soldiers is basically on the border of Quebec. And I think that in the future, I think it's too bad, because we have to educate the public more on what we do and who we are and where this place is on the map, because they don't have a clue. Maybe the reservists do that would come here in the summer, but certainly nobody else in the province. And why is that? So I think that the veteran community can fill some of that void, right? Like, yeah, do you know where all the soldiers are? Oh, aren't they in London, kind of thing? And I do that now. I tell people, no, this is where they are. Oh, I never heard of that place. Well, exactly.
It's tough, sir, because like Petawawa is great in the sense that, ideally we're left to it to do our business without having to worry about causing a disturbance in a major urban population. And I wonder if there is benefit of being tucked away, but I can tell you this, sir, like when I was posted in Toronto, which I had a very great experience, never had the 1090 experience, but I was RSS. So I was there to contribute to the reserves and help them grow for my time there. And while I was there, I did get to interact with civilians. And the double-edged blade of having all these high performers of the battalion close to civilians
Yeah.
is that we might be at risk of getting a new job real quick that pays a lot more, because I got a lot of job offers from people who spent 10 minutes with me.
Well, see, this is just it. And I think that the soldiers are a valuable commodity. And I just think about my days trying to fill an Orbat for tour. Especially you start running out of soldiers really quick. Where do we get these guys? And, to me, infantry battalions have shrunk, and that's not a good omen. Battalions have shrunk over the years, and who's going to be expected to do the majority of, the fighting? It's going to be the infantry battalions. And I was telling her, I talked to a lot of vets, and I say, you wouldn't believe how infantry battalions have shrunk. But they're still going to be expected to do all the heavy lifting. We know that. I think that we're not going to have the luxury of doing a lot of training and these big check the box exercises where we gather in all these reservists to augment. I don't think that's going to happen. If something happens for real, I don't think we're going to have that luxury. It's going to be a come as you are war.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And if I can speak to this, sir, like I can't help but describe my experience on my last deployment. It was a short deployment and it was quick. I was pulled out of my office on a Wednesday with, hey, this is what's going on. Your name has been put up to take a section overseas. We don't know where you're going, when you're going to come back, or if you're actually going to go. And in 7 days, I was on an airplane headed to the other side of the world with the section.
Yes.
And we had 2 days to prepare for a mission that could have been this or this. And we had to show and demonstrate how flexible an infantry battalion can be.
It's one of the characteristics of an infantry battalion, flexibility. Yeah, we're so flexible sometimes we're spineless. But my thing is we expect this and we know it's going to happen. But how long can you be at this heightened sense of readiness? And that's what battalions are. You're in an operational unit. You're ready to deploy. Like I found that days of the Cold War, definitely we were always in a high state of readiness, right? So you get an alert, we would come in, we'd load our vehicles, and we'd load live ammo. And away we'd go. Cam up our vehicles somewhere in the woods, wait for radio orders. Oh, it's only a drill. Come back to base, turn in weapons and ammo. No, it's an exercise. Prepare to copy. So you didn't know if you were going to, you know what I mean? Go away for a day, a week.
That's very interesting.
So yeah, like how long can you keep guys at that kind of a tempo? And this is all part, like I said, our job in the Army, in the most part, is operations, right? So let's talk about the rest of the CF. This is where I was getting at. Spec pay is another big thing, and I didn't pay too much attention to it. But when I left, I was part of a working group for pay. And they wanted Army NCM participation.
And this is one of the projects you were a part of as a Chief Warrant Officer?
Yeah. So at the end of my career, this is one of the last things I did. I got involved in this. And I'm glad I did, because I learned a lot. So what was happening was the CDS was being ambushed by a lot of trades and branches, pushing spec pay for their people. And they pretty well were getting what they wanted. And what happened was the CDS at times said, stop. That's it. I want a working group. I want an overall. I want to see, you know, why we're doing this, what the State of the Union is, and how to best approach this. So what they designed was each branch, each trade would do a presentation. We in this forum, in the working group, would score, give them a score.
This is like Dragon's Den sales pitch here.
You got it. And here's the best part. The civil service designed the scoring system.
Interesting.
And to keep it even. But I heard from one of the gentlemen in charge of the project made some comments about anybody could be a soldier, an infantryman. And
Who made that comment?
And well, no names, no pack drill. But let me just say that I told him in the strongest possible terms that this was unacceptable what he said, and he said it to everybody as part of the working group. And I said that I'll talk to my leadership, but I don't want to be part of this if this is the case. And we're going in with an already biased view even before scoring's done. So he had to retract his words, but at the end,
is this one of the judges?
He was one of the leaders of this working group. Yeah. Yeah. So at the end of the day, they all got up and gave their presentation. And I thought some of them that were getting spec pay, there's just no way. There's just no way. And one of the big things I had to fight about was we had decided that this working group on pay would revolve around a corporal, which to them is a journeyman. And, you know, so this guy is just basically learned his trade and that's it. And I said, well, I tend to disagree. I said, I got corporals, I'll tell you right now, are leading sections. I got corporals that are crew commanders.
Highly specialized.
And they said, well, no, that can't be. And I said, look, I just left an infantry battalion. I'm telling you, that is what we expect of our people.
So this conversation is all happening post-Afghanistan as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So my thing was that I might not have got through to some of the leadership, but I sure as shit got through to my peers in the RCAF and the RCN. So when we had those presentations and they got up saying how much that they deserve spec pay, I'd be there like shaking my head. And I'd look right over at them and I let them know it. At the end of it, the combat arms did pretty good. And all I knew at the time, this was back in 2016, was that spec pay as an issue was put on hold. But I made it clear to the Army chief at the time and a couple other guys that I didn't believe in spec pay and I still don't.
Why?
They base spec pay on the most part for qualifications, academic qualifications. So a college accreditation, Red Seal. This is all stuff that they got on Army time, right? Meanwhile, we're doing operations. We can't compete with that. We can't send our people off because just demands of taskings, of operations, exercises. We can't compete for that. And because they send their people to school, they were pushing for more points on a PER for education. And as at the Army NCMs, like I said, we cannot compete with that. We can't. So they're reaping all the benefits while the guys in the Army are doing operations, doing all the heavy lifting. They're getting spec pay, which, by the way, is pensionable.
Yeah.
You guys get land duty allowance,
Which is not.
which is not.
Parapay,
So
which is not.
I thought the system is not working for our people, right? And this is why I'm doing this.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
It's important for us to advocate.
Yes, yes. And I later learned that some of the stuff that they looked at that was compiled by the branches was very outdated. And it doesn't take into consideration of what we expect soldiers to do. And remember, we talked about this, a strategic soldier, and we expect more from them. We want them to be thinkers. We want them to act. You know, we want them to do a myriad of 101 things, the flexibility part, to be on high readiness, to deploy, always be fit, blah, blah, blah.
Be responsible, be accountable.
Yeah. So I thought that, you know, maybe that does deserve a second look. Like I said, maybe someday if I bring it up, I might even have a score sheet.
That'd be neat.
So yeah, no, that's one of the things. Like I said, they want this done. Like since I got out, I took advantage of what Veterans Affairs offers you, and yeah, I've been going to school for 8 years through Veterans Affairs, doing college online courses. I was working full time, civvy job, but you know, the idea is something I always wanted to get done. And I said, it would have been great if I could have got this done when I was in the Army. And this is another thing I want to talk about, right? So that was a big thing.
Sir, if I may.
Yeah.
I mean, we spoke a bit about like the characteristic type of how impactful a corporal could be in the Army, especially in the infantry corps. You know, what I found after speaking to officers and NCOs, veterans, people who are still in the ranks in the companies right now, I find that especially a very skilled, knowledgeable corporal, this is a person who is a solution-oriented problem solver. In the civilian world, we often look at a solution-oriented problem solver to be an entrepreneur. We normally identify entrepreneurs to be associated with business management. So I can find a direct correlation between my colleagues downstairs who put in so much effort and time and energy and passion into this job that are highly capable. Their mindset is so flexible.
I agree totally.
You make that soldier care like this is the mission, then they will put 110% effort into it. I've deployed on so many missions in a post-Afghanistan Canadian military that I've seen us expected to participate
You know what?
and support so many
Sarge?
operations.
I'll throw one even better. When we did things like the ice storm, or anytime we were called upon to aid the civil power, they couldn't get enough of soldiers. Why? They could get on with it. They worked like dogs to get the job done. They didn't need a lot of creature comforts, padding, or, you know, ongoing assistance. We just got on with it. And they couldn't get over that. Like, look at these guys doing everything. You know what I mean? Oh my God, they're asking for more. Well, that's why they bring us out. But the Army found out that when we do get deployed, the aid to civil power, they don't want to give us up. They don't want to give us up. Why would they? If we're doing all the heavy lifting and going on operations, that's where I got the problem. Just something for discussion, right?
100%, sir.
I don't make policy. These are my observations, right? They could say, well, Chief, I think you're wrong and full of it.
And I think
That's
it's
fine.
important to talk about it because right now we're in a very interesting situation where retention is a big problem. How do we keep our high performers?
Look to our allies. And I remember one of the big things about the U.S. military was the GI Bill. They got guys to come in. I had brought it up, and I remember writing a briefing note from my bosses when I was in Kingston saying that, you know, there should be more accreditation for our military training through the colleges so that maybe by the time a guy gets out of this time in the Army, he has a college diploma. And I got people screaming at me that, no, we're not sending soldiers to university. And that was never what I said. I said college accreditation. Why is it they cannot run a school, a course without infantry NCM instructors because they know our level of instruction is very high. I've seen what level of instruction is around CF, and I'll tell you, it ain't good. This is something where we clearly are heads above.
I know that the infantry.
Why not have accreditation for that through a college? Let's do a couple of their courses online with it, make it attainable. And a guy gets a college diploma on instructional.
If I may, sir, my sister, God bless her, she's a teacher in Peel
Right.
Regional District
I
School
got
Board.
brother and
Right.
sister teachers.
She went to school. She has a bachelor's and she has her teacher's college certification. Right. So
Right.
she
Yeah.
spent quite a bit of time in school. I was offering her advice on how to coach and teach students because I had an extravagant and an enormous amount of teaching experience from the military. The Army trained me to be an instructor, and over time and mentorship, I became a true educator. As an infantry NCO, I went from being an instructor to becoming an asset, which is an educator, right? A force multiplier to an institution. Right, like the amount of impact a good instructor can have on the institution is incredible. And I'm here offering advice to my sister, who's in the civilian world, getting paid more than me to go teach students, right? And that speaks to our experiences are relatable to other fields of work, and in fact, we have so much to offer and contribute, and we don't get enough credit sometimes.
I remember as being DSM, and you're the chief instructor for the battalion, and sitting in on lectures and stuff. And I was always pleasantly surprised by the level of instruction. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing I can put my hand on my heart and say, it was done right. And I think that's something as NCOs we can take pride in, is that. That's just one area of like I said, accreditation. They want, later on when you do your courses, as you progress in the Army, I'm talking ILQ, ALQ, they want NCOs to write college papers at that standard. Well,
These are typically your senior leadership courses, right?
and then the chief's course especially. And I'm thinking, okay, you want me to write a college level paper or a university level paper? What do we get for it? And the answer is nothing. And my thing is, if you take a guy right from PLQ all the way through, that should end up as some kind of college accreditation that recognizes this. You know what I mean? And I think that I know they're all marked by same people that mark college papers in Saint Jean, right? So where's the disconnect? How it's not a bridge too far, right? We could do this. If you're asking, and I'll give you, here's an experience I had as an RSM that still raises my blood pressure. So here we are, my last exercise in Wainwright. Yes, after 34 years in infantry battalion, I'm going to kick off my last month or so in Wainwright in the box.
What year was this?
That was 2014.
I was there.
So I'm with 1st Battalion. We're going through the maneuver box. And I've got to send something like, I think it was 6 or 8 warrant officers into the main camp to write a paper for their ILQ. And the only time I can get, first of all, we got to get passage to get out of the training area into main camp, right? Then I've got to get DWAN computers for them to log on and finish these papers for their course to be officially qualified a warrant officer. So here they are, they're mentoring young platoon commanders, going through in a maneuver box as the battle group gets put through our paces. And these guys have got to go into camp. Now, I rewind this. I said, come on, can't you at least postpone this? They're going to Maple Guardian. We can't afford to lose that many people, especially warrant officers should be mentoring and helping these young platoon commanders, go through a high readiness exercise, right? Can't we defer it? Not a chance. Not a chance. So I fought that one, and I was banging my head against the table. I said, I can't believe we're doing this, right? And the State of the Union, things could be better. I hope that things are better, but in case they're not, well, it's on the record, right? That's wrong. There's no way anybody's going to convince me that that's the way we should do business, right?
Can I put some more context into this?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
I was on that exercise. I was attached to 2 RCR on that one. And like to pull somebody in such a high impact role as being a platoon warrant officer, and especially if you're actually mentoring somebody who is a brand new officer, it's a very critical time. That exercise was like a $250 million exercise. I remember how many international players are there. I was in the field for 15 days, did not shower. Like, you're going into such a high level of commitment and dedication and resources, and all the bells and whistles are at play. And you're pulling somebody out so they can write an essay. And so they can go get plugged right back into the game. Right? While the rest of the game in the scenario is carrying on. Somebody's covering off that warrant officer while they've been pulled out. And the rest of the element is adapting while they do their homework assignment. Is just bananas. Because if you ask anybody else to go through this, it's like, oh, is this even a realistic option?
I think
It's bananas.
I think I made my point on that one. But my big thing is, I spent 34 years in an infantry battalion, period, full stop, end of story. I did private to master warrant officer in a Marine Brigade position. And like this, I should have, at the end of that, if the system works right, had a college diploma. You know what I mean? I had people go, oh, what are you worried about that for, Chief? You know what I mean? And I said, well, you've got a university degree, right? Some things count on a resume, some things don't. And I don't know if you ever saw that HBO series, The Pacific.
I did.
One of the scenes in there, which was probably the most realistic, was Eugene Sledge goes in to apply for college.
At the end.
Yeah. And the young receptionist is asking him questions about his academic credentials to get into college and about what he's been doing. And he's trying to be a gentleman, but he finally blows up at the end and tells her, I've been out there trying to kill Japs, right? And then she kind of dawns on her, okay. But my thing is we're spending all this money on transition and everything else. And my point is, if we can't give these guys time to get this done through accreditation. Now, I'm saying that my solution is no, we're not sending them home to do shit while everybody else is working, his peers are busting their butts. No. What I'm saying is when he has time, he does it online, right? Because that's what I did, what I was doing a full-time job. Do your studies online, have it accredited with the military experience, related stuff, and bing, college diploma, right? Because that I think is achievable, right? I'm not asking for something that, is out there. A lot of guys, I don't think understand that. Talking to veterans, they don't understand that an MPRR is not a resume. Listen, guys, you might want to check it out as you're going through the release process. And at any rank, you should be looking at that and saying, okay, why don't I make myself a resume? What have I got right now and what I've done, right? And it gets people thinking, right? Because to me, remember we were talking about the working group for pay. You take a lot of risks. What you do is dangerous, right? What we do is dangerous. Live ammunition, jumping out of airplanes, working at night, complex terrain, all that stuff. To me, that's got to count, right? That's got to count. And I think that the rest of the CF doesn't, I don't think, appreciate that or understand that, right? They don't know the demands on a soldier, what's expected. Because like I said, once you get your PLQ course and you're a corporal, hey, you're going to be interviewed by the RSM of the unit. I'm going to take a big interest in you because now, guess what? You're in the hopper. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't be such a far-flung thing if a guy was, lifting way more than what he should in operations, because that can happen, right? So that's that part. I think that management, that's one of my big things after now I'm out of the Army. I understand a guy, look, I could take a corporal from a battalion and have him run, be in charge of about 40, 50 people, in basic management stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he'd do a pretty good job. And out in Civvy Street, you wouldn't believe how unorganized some of these guys are.
Oh, yeah.
So my big thing is to soldiers, never underestimate the training that you have and the experience. We don't have, like, especially senior NCOs, you don't have university degrees, but you got one hell of a shitload of operational experience, right?
Correct.
And
it's hard to see how much value you have when you're surrounded with your peers and colleagues who are all capable just as much as you are. But when you get cut away and you get tasked to like another branch of service, I found myself becoming a lot more of value. And when I deployed at the Air Force, I noticed that I was able to really contribute to them.
I'm looking at your production crew here. Outstanding. Like, these guys get it.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I love that saying about a learning institution and, promoting learning. And it's got to be key. We expect more from our guys. And I remember the way we used to train infantry section commanders was pretty well how to conduct a platoon attack. You could read between the lines. Okay, fire base, flanking, left or right. And then they went to just frontals, which I thought was stupid. But the whole idea was you're training section commanders to take over in the event the platoon commander goes down or the platoon 2IC goes down, right? Because the mission's still going to be there, right? And as far as the learning institution goes, I remember when computers came out in the 1990s, as senior NCOs, we had to teach ourselves. And we had no formal schooling on computers. I didn't even know how to plug it in, turn it on. We taught ourselves because this is just like one of those things, sink or swim. You know what I mean? And we got on with it. But why is it everything we did as an NCM was being self-taught? No formal courses. I think sometimes that really bothers me because we have to take our time to teach ourselves. Something wrong here. You know what I mean? Where the rest of the CF, they're going away for 3 months to do a course or something, or they're doing it at home online. What are you doing? You're doing operations, right? We're running a course. For training, I always thought that PT was something, when I joined, we did what we thought was right, but a lot of time we were just producing premature cripples. You know what I mean?
What do you mean, sir?
Well, we didn't know how to train, right? The stuff we trained with was terrible. And now we know more about, the right way of doing physical training. But there's also...
Can I ask you something? When did you start to see this shift of adopting like exercise science?
You know what? This came about as operations. So I'll fill you in. So when I was in CAD-TC, nobody really wanted the Army fitness portfolio. So I'm there, sure, because I remember sitting there with my platoon warrants overseas on tour and before tour, talking about how heavy we got. Like, holy shit, guys, especially overseas.
We're talking about equipment,
Yeah,
armor, all the
you
stuff.
got it.
Yeah.
Full battle rattle. And I said to the guys, I said, look, that last tick, nobody was running for cover. And you know why? Because it couldn't run. Because we're so effing heavy. So guys were putting down suppressing fire. Guys were moving. I got it. But do you ever watch how fast we move? How quick we are? We're not. So we're like little battlefield tanks. We're carrying a lot of ammunition. When you look at ammo, water, mission essential kit, that's a lot of weight. We were very heavy. I remember we were on an op and we had a big American wounded. And believe me, it wasn't gunshot wounds or indirect fire. He was jumping over a ditch. And he got on the other side and he didn't move, went down. And I went up to him and I said, what's wrong? I can't feel my legs. Okay. So we get this guy on a backboard, treat him for a spinal injury. I remember talking to the company 2IC saying, keep going. The medevac's on its way. We'll link up with you. Right. And I remember I picked 4 other guys to help me. And this guy was 6 foot. Jeez. I think, to be honest, I'm thinking he was like 6'8". So he was huge. And we get this guy on the Blackhawk. And I remember saying, okay, guys, we're going to go all around the fence over in there in that grape wall. And we'll take a breather. We were exhausted. We were freaking exhausted. Just the heat and weight of what we were carrying, our own weight plus his on that helicopter. And I'm looking at that crew chief going, pick up your end. We were dying. And we were all fit guys. And that told me that, you know, what is going to be the barometer we use to say a soldier's fit for operations, right? So you got to look at the aims, the principles of training, realism. So we got to have it, in my opinion, with full battle rattle. So a guy has got to be put through his paces with the kit he's going to carry on operations. So we did a close bit to that, but we weren't as heavy as we were overseas. So I went through like war diaries. We had Army lessons learned cell there I could draw data from. I talked to the schools, engineers, radio operators, medics, and some of the weights I got, oh my God, we were carrying that much. Soldiers can't last that long. They're not machines, but you got to be able to fit enough. We don't want to find out in the battle that, you know what I mean? You ain't going to make it to the objective, right? Be a liability. So we came up with forced combat. I don't know if it.
So you were part of the forced combat.
Yeah, I was the first guinea pig.
program. Wow.
So here I am. I'm 54 years old. I had AFib at the time, and I was a guinea pig for it. And I said to the PhD that was doing all the data setup, I said, look, don't base it on me. We'll think of a standard, a cutoff. And it was roughly something to replicate a 5-6K route march with a small pack, because we wouldn't go to war with that incredibly huge, Omer the tent maker, bag that they came up with. But a small pack, full battle rattle, and then you do all the stands for the force test with your full battle rattle. It was a start. That's all it was
Are you
meant
talking
to
about
be.
the combat forces
Yeah.
test, sir?
Yeah.
Ah, I see.
So
But
it was
the force test existed without the combat force test for a period of time.
Now, meanwhile, the rest of the armed forces is struggling with the force test. I got it. They always will struggle. But for us, fitness is paramount, right?
Yes.
So why is it that professional sports teams can have guys back in the saddle in a matter of weeks, where it takes our guys, they'll be on light duties for 4 or 5 months. I don't know. Maybe they could do better than that. Maybe the medical system can do better and fine tune that. Let's see. But my thing is the infantryman is getting pretty heavy. And I remember some of the things they were looking at when I got out, that they wanted the military soldiers in the battlefield to carry little consoles with digital maps on it. I understood the reason behind it was that we wouldn't shoot our own guys. You got this equipment, it's an IFF thing, so we can avoid blue on blue, right? Fratricide. But my thing was at the time was, how much more are we going to put on a soldier? You know what I mean? Should we be looking at robotics? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we're getting the conversation of sustainment.
Trust me, Serge. 34 years in an infantry battalion. Trust me. You should see me when I get up in the morning. It's not a pretty picture, man. You know what I mean? But the idea was, at least I can still get up, right? But yeah, it's something to look at. But I thought
something about that topic, sir.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would have liked to have seen that wasn't implemented?
As far as fitness,
Correct.
what things like yoga, stretching, flexibility is key to injury prevention. And I think maybe we don't do enough of it. I think a lot of real he-men, we looked at yoga and said, "Oh, yoga." You know what I mean? No, yoga, yes, yoga. Those kind of strategies, because we do a lot of load bearing. It's still a lot of who we are as infantrymen, but at the end of the day, we've got to do more of those kind of things. More swimming. And here's another thing about swimming. I found this out. Here I am, RSM of the 1st Battalion. We're in Norway, putting guys on a landing craft across a river in Norway. I got guys, I find out at that time, can't swim. What? Can't swim? And then I said, okay, I get back to Canada. I want to find out how many soldiers we have. Can't swim. Well, guess what? I was in for a rude surprise. And I said, well, didn't you guys get this in recruit training? Nope. No time. What? What do you mean no time? This is a life skill. I thought everybody in the armed forces. I remember that for Cornwallis, because my dad was in the Navy. He did his seamanship training at Cornwallis. So they made sure everybody on that boat can swim, right? Which made a lot of sense if you're in the Navy. But here I am years later. I'm a chief, and I'm involved in what we call non-commissioned member general specifications. And that was a working group to go over all the things that a recruit should be trained to do. Right?
Interesting.
And I said, oh, I got a question for this group. Swimming. These guys should know how to swim. And I got a lot of hums and haws from my the purple trades, the RCAF, and the RCN. I said, RCN? I said, you're the Navy. You don't think that this is important? He goes, oh, we got guys on ships that can't swim. And I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? But this is another thing that when I found out and did some research, it came back to, oh, well, the battalions, you guys get on with it. And I said, battalions can't afford. This is operational. This means that we could have to drop everything and deploy somewhere in the world on short notice. We're not the people to do this. This needs to be done in schools, right? You've got them there, and these are one of the hot potato things that you get in peacetime militaries, right? And it's bullshit.
Like passing the buck, essentially.
I remember doing the for the water jumps, you do the training in the Well, a lot of guys that turns out had some pretty severe claustrophobia issues that we didn't know about. And we found out there. Well, better to find out there than, you know what I mean, on the real operation, right? Especially if you're trying to do something stealthy, and you got a guy with a canopy over his head screaming in the middle of the river. You know what I mean? Not a good outcome. Yeah, I think we've got to do a lot more because I don't know what the future of the Army's going to be. But I'll tell you one thing: I can bet the next war, infantrymen are probably going to be carrying more than what I even think that they're going to be carrying. When you look at the Falklands, would probably be a good study to base things on.
Why is that?
They had they had to carry a lot of ammunition for their support weapons, like their mortars, extra machine gun ammunition, and lots of it. I think that, but they didn't have any body armor. So, but it was light. The hardest fight's going to be light, right? And it's, like I said, carrying anti-tank ammunition, mortar ammunition, extra machine gun ammo. They're going to be laid down pretty good. And you know what? It's all mission essential, right? All you need in battle is bullets and water. And even probably the water will be the first thing that goes, right? Yeah, I think I got a lot of stuff. I floated around a lot of ideas. It's just, like I said, for discussion. Um,
Change starts with discussion. And the infantry is sometimes, I find, the heart and soul of the Army.
yeah, I know that your RSM was at the United States Army Sergeant Major Academy in Fort Bliss. I was supposed to go there, by the way. I ended up not going, but
Can you tell people about that program?
he would be a better guy to talk about it than myself. But I think sometimes we are underutilized, the Senior NCO Corps and the Army. I know that uh, our allies, Five Eyes allies, I think that they're ahead of us in PME. In our Army, I think the NCO Corps is kind of stagnant. Maybe they've made some changes since I got out, but I still think that we're kind of underutilized. Um, I think, I asked the Army Tech Warrant course when I was in Kingston. I had the QS for it. And I asked them, what was the most important thing you guys learned on that course? Hands down, because I had to do a QS review of every lesson plan. Hands down, they said critical thinking.
Interesting.
And I thought, okay. I don't even know if there's any critical thinking in any of our leadership courses, right?
As a structured PO,
Yeah.
it's definitely going to be in mission analysis. That's where you're going to
Yeah,
do.
it'll be in little drips and drabs, but on it by itself, right? That's what I was looking for. You know, technologies in the battlefield like cyber, all these kind of things. Like my point is the soldiers are better educated from when I joined. When I joined, you needed grade 8, right? You know, I was thinking about university at the time, but I knew I had no money in my family. Nobody had money. That's like the quickest thing I can do to get a job. Out of Dodge, just join the Army. And I did. I look back on it now. I got no regrets. I enjoyed my time.
But you know what's beautiful about this organization, the Infantry Corps? The Infantry Corps is welcoming to people who come from hard upbringings like yourself, people who even come from even less fortunate than that, people who come from very...
And you know why that is? It's like in most armies. It's a chance to elevate yourself socially that you wouldn't get on Civvy Street. Army gives you that. If you work hard, keep your nose clean, you have a chance to advance your standing in life, right? And that's one of the things I kind of liked about the Army. But when I look at today's soldiers, these guys got a lot more education than what I had. They probably have college, some of them probably have university. And I think that you want to give these guys a challenge because life is all about goals. You got to have goals at every stage of life.
Let's talk about this.
You do. You do. You got to set yourself a goal. And I used to bring in guys I'd interview. Like I said, once you had POQ infantry, you're in my office. I want to sit down with you. I want to find out what your plans are.
Can I ask you something, sir?
Yeah.
When did you ever feel like there's a moment you can remember where you're like, yeah, that's when I started becoming a mentor?
I think the moment you start being an instructor, you really are a mentor because you're a talent scout. When you're running a course, not just necessarily leadership, you're a mentor, but you're also a talent scout. And you're looking at guys saying like, holy shit, that guy could probably run the fucking Army. You know what I mean? There's a lot of talented, smart people out there. And you know what the idea is, you know, are they being challenged? Right? Are they being challenged? I remember both COs that I had, you know, Peter Scott and James Price, great COs, great officers, great gentlemen. They did exit interviews and every soldier that was leaving the unit. And you have to do that. Some companies do it out in Civvy Street, but not enough of them. But the idea is it gives you a report card in your organization. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? You know, what would you have liked to have seen? You know, and to me, we got to utilize these guys. We got to give them a challenge. This is what I'm saying about college accreditation. You know what I mean? The rest of the CF, trust me, they've got this down pat. I want to level the playing field, right? That's what I wanted to do. Because like I said, they might have all the Red Seal accreditation and all that crap, but what about risk, right? What about extreme working conditions? Not to mention pressure of operations and that kind of thing. You know, that should come into play. And I think that honestly, the CF sometimes I think takes for granted these places. Now they're starting to listen. Now they know that they're in a bit of a recruiting conundrum, right? But these are the things, like I said, didn't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, they could look at the U.S. Army and the GI Bill and how that worked for them over the years. You know, set guys up for success. They're starting this new stuff like transition and all that, but I got it. But, you know, do something for them while they're still in the forces, right? Don't wait until they're retired. These guys want to get going, man. It's Friday night. They got things, man. Hey, I know soldiers. I was one at one time, decades ago.
Honestly, sir, like we enjoy having guests like yourself come down, share your thoughts, your experience, and knowledge.
You know.
But like, you know, this conversation that we're having, like, it's clear that the infantry corps contributes so much, and sometimes we don't advocate enough for ourselves, and we can't lean on the rest of the army to look after us. And sometimes the best advocates for us are us, the NCOs, the officers.
Yeah, like, you know, at the end of the day, you guys are going to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
You do the heavy lifting.
And if
Like,
we're not
you know what? The gentlemen come and go on a regular basis, but you guys are the, you know, in-house expertise, right? And you know what? To me, I always thought maybe I would have benefited from a little bit more formal education just to be a better advisor, right? Because like I said, so much we do is self-taught. You know what I mean? I want all you guys to leave with a college diploma or 2 or 3, right? Because God knows these are the discussions that need to take place.
Correct. Definitely. And I always believe that it's the discussions, the conversations that lead to the change, the action.
Yeah, you know, to me, I always liked the part about discussion. To me, discussion and disagreement is not disloyalty. It's like, I always wanted platoon warrants as a sergeant major, and I always wanted my sergeant majors to speak their mind. I didn't want sycophants.
What's that?
Sycophants is basically you tell the boss that everything he does is right and he does nothing wrong. But the idea is it's a recipe for disaster, right? You look at Hitler during the Second World War. Well, they didn't have the guts to tell him the real scoop. So he lived in a fantasy world and his soldiers died by the thousands, right? That's what happens when you have sycophants. It's a disaster. You know what? You should always have loyalty to your command team, to your RSM, to your CO, right? But at the same time, if you get a chance to give your opinion, give it. Give it based on what your experiences are and what you really believe. And I'm sure they'll appreciate you for it. Right? Either that or throw something. Yeah.
So I like to always ask people who have come on as guests. I think role models and mentors have played a big role in a lot of us becoming who we are today. Do you remember anybody that comes to mind that played a huge role, or people that have played roles in
Oh,
development?
there are,
Anybody change your mind about something big?
you know what? I'll be honest. There's so many of them that
It wouldn't be fair to just name
point.
one.
Yeah, they would point you in the right direction. Like, I'll be honest. I never served under a chief warrant officer in RSM that didn't give pretty good advice. Some of it you might have disagreed with, but on the whole, it was, they spoke from experience and what worked, and you can't knock that. As an institution, we're terrible at judging the wisdom of our predecessors, and you got to think to yourself, wow, they seem to have gone through the same mess. And they probably went through a lot of suffering to come up with this solution. Maybe it's there for a good reason. And sure enough, you find out why, right? It's okay to ask the question why once in a while, but do the research, ask around, read, and you'll find out that, yeah, it's probably for a good reason.
Were you always into reading?
I
education?
consider myself well read, because, like I said, most of my life it's self-taught. You know what I mean? And it's true. You've got to be that way. Got to have that learning or the urge to learn. I still will do stuff online. And I still like to read. I'll do at least a couple books, 2 or 3 a month anyway. But no, you have to. I think the young guys now got it. Like I said, we just got to make sure that they're challenged, not just physically, mentally as well.
Definitely. And when I talk about the flexibility of the infantry corps, it's always associated with our mental.
They're always going to get it done.
Yeah.
But my thing is about the little guy that does the majority of the fighting. What are we doing for them? It's one thing to kit them, pretty good kit, a lot better than the miserable garbage I had. But, you know what I mean? Setting them up for success when they leave the Army, right? Making sure they get recognized formally for all that training that they did, academic stuff that they needed for leadership courses. It counts. I think the rest of the CF got that down pat. The Army's got to do some catching up.
So you're now retired out of the military for some years. What are you up to nowadays?
Right now, I'm just doing part-time work, which leaves me more time for reading. But no, I've got 2 daughters. One of them just got engaged. But the big thing is after being in the Army for most of my life, it's reconnecting with family, right? That's my sole purpose, to do more on my wife's side, on my side. She's prairie girl. I'm from out east. We don't do big trips to Europe because guess what? We're traveling within Canada.
You got your sights set on the place you're gonna go see sometime soon? Right on, sir.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Today's guest was Chief Warrant Officer Kevin Donovan, retired RSM from 1 RCR, was the CSM of Para Company of 3 RCR, where I currently serve at right now. It's been a pleasure to have you here, sir, to connect with you, to see that there's such strong advocates for me and all the members who still serve today, that have retired and still care about us. It means a lot, sir. You know, I think that the idea of the regimental community, it's a lot more than just those who still wear the uniform today.
Yeah.
It's all
My last plug.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm a member of the local branch of the Regimental Association, and it is open to serving members. So it's just a comradeship based organization. There's no hidden agenda. It's just being with soldiers, talking about soldier things. You get a good insight into the veteran community, but you know, at the same time, like I said, it's free. There's no hidden agenda. It's just comradeship.